Welcome back, everyone. I apologize because we have to end the video because I need to do some emergency. We stop with DCOT. Basically, DCOT is a cognitive model being done in healthcare settings and has also been used for software team interaction. As this is the distributed cognitive model, physical layout, information flow, artifacts and environment, social role, temporal evolution. It's connected to multimodal analytics, learner activity data, pre-processing and feature extraction, alignment to multimodal. Basically, it's the data of the system, kind of like a database, cognitive task model, domain general task, domain specific task, observable action. The observable action is where we get the data, but it came from subtask and task. Then the outcomes, formative feedback for learners and instructors, new insights for simulation designers and researchers, inferences about cognitive functions and behaviors from propagation to higher levels. And then next, we will discuss external cognition. So the distributed cognition um, talks about the different representation of information in the system. External cognition is about people interact with or create information by using variety of external representations, including books, web pages, sketches, diagrams, notes, drawings, photos, and so on. Furthermore, an impressive range of tools has been developed throughout history to aid cognition, including pens, calculators, spreadsheet, and software workflows. This combination of external representations and physical tools has greatly extended and supported people's ability to carry out cognitive activities. So this is different with distributed cognition in which it talks about the change or the new information got from external um, representation. So while this distributed cognition talks about the relationship of the system, here the external representation allow us to create new information about the system, such as books, web pages, sketches, diagrams, notes, drawings, photos, and so on. Furthermore, an impressive range of tools has been developed through history to aid cognition, including pens, calculators, spreadsheets, and software workflows. The combination of external representations and physical tools has greatly extended and supported people's ability to carry out cognitive tasks. So, this combination of diagrams, web pages, uh, pens, calculators, spreadsheets, and this diagram itself, the software workflows, allows to extend people's ability to carry out cognitive tasks enormously. So again, it amplifies that that through this external cognition. So before we were not able to like explain how these tools are able to like extend our capabilities. Now uh, getting we're seeing the use of it. The external mind was a philosophical account of how digital technologies were becoming an extension of our minds, while theory of external cognition was concerned with how we could design new kinds of technologies and interfaces that would empower our cognitive abilities while reducing cognitive effort. This include the following: cognitive offloading, Other kinds of external representation people frequently employ are notes, such as sticky notes, shopping lists, sending email or text to oneself, and to-do lists. Evidence shows that cognitive offloading is a common strategy to prevent forgetting and also to avoid the effort of remembering. A key factor is a person's level of confidence. The less confident they are, they will remember, the more likely they are to offload, regardless of how good memory actually is. Now, basically, this external cognition has cognitive offloading, computational offloading, annotating, and cognitive tracing. So, this uh, relationship between us and how we use external representation to create information on the system could be divided into these three categories. The philosophy of minds talks about how technologies is becoming extension of our minds, while this external cognition study the pros and cons, the strengths and weaknesses of our cognition, and how it's related to its environment scientifically, like this external cognition, um, distributed cognition, information processing, mental models. So these are the scientific way of looking at it: learning, memory load and password, searching, memory perception, multitasking and attention, and most importantly, attention. These are the scientific ways for us to understand how actually cognition works. So those are interconnected, as we will see later. Cognitive uploading, reminding them to do something, for example, get something for mother's birthday, reminding them of what to do, such as buy a card, reminding them of when to do something, for instance, send it by a certain date. So there's a lot of combination of the external representation that allows us to do this. For example, this send it by a certain date. It, for example, an application not just allows you to create send a GIF, but it also allows you to send it by a certain date because another tool was created or software was invented for the other purpose. Now you combine two capabilities. It allows you to combine this external representation to create new information. That's why it's hard to predict because a lot of representation and combination could be combined in one representation of information. So that's another way to think about this cognitive offloading. But basically, it provide like another thing is like situational awareness. It provides an awareness so that our limited memory could be reminded by those at the right time. Computational offloading is when we use a tool or device in conjunction with an external representation to help us carry out a computation. Now try doing the multiplication again, but using Roman numerals like xxi times xv I. It's much harder unless you are an expert using Roman numerals, even though the problem is equivalent under both conditions. So this example is the number that we have provided earlier, which is the 21 times um, 39, I think. But yeah, we use Roman numerals instead of numbers. So the reason for this is that two different representations transform the task into one that is easy and one that is more difficult. Respectively, the kind of tool used also can change the nature of the task to be being easier or more difficult. So computational offloading is kind of the um, talks about this uh, computation that we do every day, such as calculating, multiplying numbers. So it's about using the right numbers that produce the right information or the right combination of representation that will help us offload a lot of work in the background. So annotating and cognitive tracing. This is the last part, third part rather. Another way in which we externalize our cognition is by modifying representation to reflect changes that are taking place that we want to take note of. For example, people often crossing off a to-do list to indicate tasks that have been completed. They may also render objects in the environment by creating different files as the nature of the work to be done changes. These two types of modifications are called annotating and cognitive tracing. Annotating involves modifying external representations such as crossing or off or underlying items. Cognitive trading involves external manipulating items into different order or structures. So because there's a lot of combinations that could be unpredictable when we're dealing with this external representation, whether it's our phone, those appliances that we use. It's important to categorize this. Annotating, it involves crossing off or underlying items. So anything that's crossing or underlying items, such as your to-do list, it's called annotating. Cognitive tracing, on the other hand, involves externally manipulating items into different orders or structures until you get your right information. So one of the best example for this is the physical interface of Lego that allows you to move the Lego, that allows you to create new information based on how you move it on the digital screen. Annotating is often used when people go shopping. People usually begin their shopping by planning what they are going to buy. This often involves looking at their cupboards and fridge to see what needs stocking up. However, many people are aware that they won't remember all this in their heads, so often externalize it as written shopping list. So the act of looking on your cupboards and fridge to see what needs stocking up is actually part of this annotating because you're tracking. So in a website, it's like, for example, when you go here and you go back, you automatically go back. So because the website are tracking. So but you are not aware of that move. So that's the thing. The act of writing may also remind them of other items that they need to buy, which we may not have noticed when looking through the cupboards. When they actually go shopping at the store, they may cross off items on the shopping list as they are placed in the shopping basket or cart. Let me add something to this. Basically, this is a form of a like cognitive offloading as well, but we call this annotating, okay? Because we use an external shopping list. The act of writing may also remind them of other items that they need to buy, which may not have noticed when looking through the cupboards. When they actually go shopping at the store, they may cross off items on the shopping list as they are placed in the shopping basket or cart. This provides them with an annotated externalization, allowing them to see at a glance what items are still left on the list that need to be bought. Okay, so annotating is like, especially for people who learn through writing, the act of writing will help you remember it. Just like the act of like verbally speaking this will help us understand more of what it is on the thing because there's like cognitive thing, invisible cognitive uh, information that happen when we take notes and when we speak of it. Cognitive tracing is useful in conditions where the situation is in a state of flux and person is trying to optimize their position. Cognitive tracing has also been used as an interactive function, for example, letting students know what they studied in an online learning package. An interactive diagram can also be used to highlight all of the nodes visited, exercise completed, and units still to be studied. So cognitive tracing, this like what I've said when we were tracking, it's also used in course. It most often used at course. So this kind of representation or new information being created is tracking that people when you people interact with this annotation, it often most useful for this interactive learning environment. The different kinds of information visualization can be developed that reduce amount of effort required to make inferences about given topic. For example, financial forecasting or identifying programming bugs. So another thing is visualization. So aside from tracking, what other tools that will allow us to get the right information at the right time? Visualization. In so doing, like the graph in the interface, the shape-changing graphs. In doing so, they can extend or amplify condition, allowing people to perceive and do activities they couldn't do otherwise. For example, information visualizations are used to represent detail a visual form that can make it easier to make cross comparisons, dimensions, and see patterns and anomalies. So, like changing the structure or annotating or crossing is not always the right approach for externally placing this cognitive representation. Basically, another uh, tool is visualization. But what if like you need something to be visualized and at the same time you need to make mistakes. So for that type of interaction, you need to be able to uh, go back to it. So it's kind of like an annotating tracing, which is often most useful for like websites. Another thing that I have add to it is that humans are we because we're a creature of habit. We learn to like do these things even though we don't have vocabulary about this. So now we don't we know what cognitive tracing is, how annotating is different from cognitive tracing, and how cognitive tracing is like the back space option of this website. It allows us to have vocabulary. Now, of course, people will be able to do that naturally because they have done that before, but that doesn't mean that they are aware on what they have done in the first place. Workflow and contextual dialog box also pop up at appropriate time to guide user through their interactions, especially when there are potentially hundreds and sometimes thousands of options available. This reduces memory load significantly and frees up memory cognitive capacity for enabling people to complete desired tasks. So this is another example of cognitive tracing because it allows you to see where you are um, at a specific moment, and it helps you to go back. Let's say you have so it makes things clear in sequence. So it makes the things are clearer now on how it is ordered. And the last part, thankfully, is the embodied interaction. Embodied interaction, this involves creating, manipulating, and making meaning through or engage interaction with physical things, including mundane objects such as cups and spoons, and technological devices such as smartphones and robots. Artifacts and technologies that indicate how they are coupled to the world make it clear how they should be used. For example, a physical artifact, like a book, when left open on someone's desk, can remind them to complete an unfinished task the next day. So this does not just involve like underlining, it's more engaged, like opening a book. So it involves like our body. We need to like you need the body with the annotating, but it's more dealing with writing or crossing off external representation, especially for physical devices like to-do list. But here is about like the physical devices, like opening a notebook. So this embodied interaction, we've been doing this since the beginning of time. When, for example, in dancing, these are called marking. We're trying to mimic that through marking, or let's say other how people like learn. Swording before, they also use this types, and how people learn to cook. So they use this external representation. They just don't aware. Sometimes like people are intuitive in using this powerful cognitive external cognition because it is again a study of how we like amplify our cognition or expand our capability. Emma Hornicker and colleagues 2017 further explain embodied interaction in terms of how our bodies and active experiences shape how we feel, how we perceive, feel, and think. They describe how our ability to think abstractly is a result of our sensory motor experiences with the world. This enables us to learn how to think and talk using abstract concepts such as inside, out, up, down, on top of, and behind. So the EVA studies specific type of environment where our environment allow us to amplify how we perceive, feel, and think by using this inside out gesture, up and down, on top of, and behind. So it described our ability to think of abstract terms in terms of our sensory motor experiences, such as I think the dancer have a lot for high sensory motor experience or sense of touch uh, awareness because they learn easily dancing, whereas for other people it may not be so. This enable us to learn how to think and talk using abstract concepts, right? Our numerous experience of moving through and manipulating the world. Since we were born, for example, climbing, walking, crawling, stepping into, holding, or playing, is what enabled us to develop a sense of the world at both concrete and abstract level. So we also make sense of the world within our brain because additional thing is that not all people are the same, right? For example, for me, I learned through books. My brain works different on other people's brain. For some people, like they have this innate capability, sensory motors that allows them to make sense of the environments. Whereas for me, it's hard for me to learn to dance because I don't really have this high sensory motor senses. So another thing that I would add or my take on this environment thing is that yes, it's very like I think the environment is like 99% of who we are because our environment changes us. So how we perceive, feel, all of our senses, or all of our uh, capabilities that we are unknown, such as visualization, hearing, are in our affected by our environment, affected by how we like perceive, uh, not just perceive but manipulate it or um, interact with it. So a lot of our actions are basically dependent on our environment because it affects our senses. So therefore, our environment is the number one dictator of our result or things that we have in life or things that we have accomplished. All right. So he studied choreographers and dancers and observed that they often partially model a dance known as marking through using abbreviation moves and small gestures rather than doing full workout mentally, simulating the dance in their heads. So basically, what this dancer do is that they're using abbreviation, like for example, here and then they are using this mental small gestures, and then they're imagining themselves like when they're doing the dance while they are seeing. So that's again, that's a different combination of external cognition on how we actually learn. And then when they dance, it becomes like easy for them to to do it because they were able to like imagine themselves in their head before they do it. This kind of marking was found to be a better method of practice than the other two methods. The reason for doing this way is not that it is saving energy or preventing dance from getting exhausted emotionally, but it enables them to review and explore particular aspects of a phrase or a movement without mental complexity involved in a full workout. The implication of how people use so it not just it save energy by preventing you from being exhausted emotionally and physically, but it also enables you to review and explore particular aspects of a phrase or movement without the mental complexity in a full workout. Because in a full workout, it's actually harder. Like for some of you who have tried to dance, it's hard when you're like actually dancing, so you don't know how to do it. So this allows practice, and then it's allows you to explore other things that is more beneficial. Like it allows you to like uh, make errors on the other aspects of the dance that you want to try. So you basically are failing early with those moves, and those like failing early is like a different way we interact with this information. So that's another vocabulary when we like avoid some failure for like failure critical tasks such as dancing. We that's called embodied interaction. The implication of how people use embodiment in their lives is that learning new procedures and skills might be better taught by a process like marking, where learners create little models of things or use their own bodies to act out. For example, rather than developing fully fledged virtual reality simulations for learning, golf, tennis, skiing, skiing, and so on, it might be better to teach a set of abbreviations using augmented reality as a form of embodied demand marketing. So what that does it entails? So it may be um, better to use like small gestures in augmented reality in this new device or in a website. Maybe let the user try this first without harm, allowing and do so. Yeah, those are the implications of this because there's this called embodied interaction. Uh, uh, embodied interaction for extending our external cognition. And again, and this is a sample of dancing that do this marking. So watching this video is another way for you to understand how this gesture works. So yeah, there's some people at the front that allow them to copy it, but they've done the marking beforehand. So there, we were able to discuss the cognitive frameworks, especially what cognition is, and the terms in cognition that uh, was described that is acceptable, which is attention, perception, memory, learning, reading, speaking, and listening, problem solving, reasoning, and decision making. After that, we discuss the cognitive frameworks, mental models, goals of execution and evaluation, information processing, and then inside that information processing, we talk about different type of distributed cognition. So basically, these are the terms that we use, and we've also discussed the techniques on how are you able to leverage this knowledge in your web application or in your technology interface. Again, guys, thank you for watching, and see you on the next video. Peace.